Hello my friends, how are you? Sean Ferrick here for Trek Culture. NFTs, down. Now, this is one of the shorter episodes of the season, but really quite a lot happens because we get an awful lot of exposition via mind messery. We spend a lot of time in Picard's brain in this episode, but there is such a massive up. Dr. Gaius Baltar, James Kallus himself, appears in Star Trek this week. This is the crossover I've been waiting for since about 2003, when Ronald D. Moore and David Icke decided, hey, you know that Battlestar Galactica thing? Maybe we should give that one a bit of another go. He is wonderful. His measured interactions with Patrick Stewart in this episode are just fantastic. These are two incredible English actors going toe-to-toe with each other. Initially, we don't really know who Kallus is playing. He's clearly in some sort of counselor role, and we just assume he's a figment of Picard's imagination, but also we can assume that this is from some point in Picard's past. The uniform that he's wearing, obviously it's not quite the First Contact uniform. It's flatter, it's not quilted, for example, and it has darker stripes down the V. Whereas the First Contact version didn't have that. It's like it's something of a middle ground between the First Contact uniform and what we saw Raffi and Jean-Luc and Icheb wearing in the 2380s in Picard Season 1. Yep, it's another uniform, and yeah, you can be damn sure I'll be picking it up. In this session, we see Kallus is somewhat switched off. Like, he's in this counselor role, but he's also not exactly Deanna Troying his way through speaking to Jean-Luc. He's definitely taking more of a, well, my mom told me I need to be here for an hour, so let's fill out the time, shall we? There's something about it. Initially, I took this to be a sort of almost reverse psychology type counseling session, that he was going to feign disinterest to encourage Jean-Luc to speak. And certainly it looks like it's going that way for a few minutes. And I'm going to be sort of jumping around in the episode here, because I'm going to jump all the way now to the reveal of who Kallus is playing in this episode. And the reveal that he is playing Maurice Picard, Jean-Luc's father, I had a moment where I was just like, oh, really? But then I stopped, because again, the performances, but actually the way it's revealed, it works very nicely. If you look at it, then what have we always known about Maurice Picard? He was a very domineering man. He was not close with Jean-Luc. Robert was much more like Maurice. That's what we know about him. Then in Season 2 of Picard, we get the impression that Yvette Picard was being abused by Maurice, that it was a very unsafe living situation to be in. We find that memories of childhood are not necessarily accurate. They are certainly affecting, but not accurate to the facts. So the reveal of Kallus as Maurice Picard, and it's not exactly a, oh, I love you, son, we never understood each other moment. It's an open your eyes, son, and see that there's more around you moment. Now, the fact that it's being played in flashback means we're unlikely to get an awful lot more James Kallus in Picard, but what we got was fantastic. James Kallus, you were brilliant. You're a massive up for me this week. If this is an up for me this week, so the theme is how depression affects those around us, and also how it can benefit us. Because one of the lessons that we learn in the episode is there is no better teacher than your enemy. And quite frankly, we see this being played again and again throughout the episode. The reveal of Yvette's own darkness and her, it's assumed, inability to really see the reality around her feeds into how Jean-Luc viewed the world around him as a child. And it's quite a frightening yet very heartbreaking message in this episode. If a parent is struggling with their own inner demons, but wants to hide that as much as possible from their own children, might they not try and help with a fantasy world where, you know, the villains are mustache twirling and they are quite monstrous in their appearance. They are therefore easy to identify, as opposed to the mood swings and the darkness that come associated with this type of condition. It's a heck of a statement for Picard to make, as well as we were slightly worried that they would introduce an awful lot to Yvette, Maurice and Jean-Luc's background that, not exactly canon breaking, but was just like, is this not something we should have known the whole time? Absolutely not. I think that this is essential to understanding Jean-Luc without necessarily being essential to have known that up to this point. I think it's a very clever, very difficult job they pulled off this week. Very, very, very much enjoyed it. However, I do have it down, and it's where this episode lands in the season. If you think back to season 1, back when Adam was doing the ups and downs for Picard season 1, and he spoke about Nepenthe, about what a strong episode it was and how much enjoyment he got from it. But the fact that it was episode 7 of a 10 episode season, it was a bit like everyone has to stop, wait, figure out what's going on, and now we can continue. And actually, I have the same issue with Monsters. To be fair, I'm not sure where this should go in the season. I would say earlier, like maybe episodes 2 or 3. Now, potentially you could have been like, well, we would have revealed too much earlier on, and that would be fair. We spend so much of this episode in Jean-Luc's head, when really the story is now about following Jurati, about Ríos smashing the Temporal Prime Directive to bits. Oh, I will get to that. That's what the story is, and we've almost completely left that to the side for an entire hour coming up to the end of the season. The placement of Monsters is my down this week. Excellent episode. I mean, it's a bit like, oh, Sean, will you make up your mind? And, you know, fair. It should have come earlier in the season. But that's all I would change about it in that respect, is that it just came a little bit too late in the season, and it's really affected the pacing of season 2. Now, up. Raffi and 7. I'm so happy to say I'm giving Raffi and 7 an up this week. Particularly Raffi. I love her line. Like, oh, hang on. Are we following Agnes and Ríos' love story? They're the side event. We're the main event. And if we're going after them, I quit the gang. I just love the way she delivers these lines. I love her interplay with Jerry Ryan. I think they're really, really strong together. I did, and I stand by the downs I gave throughout this season for there was a slight kind of why are we here feeling about their characters. Really, really enjoyed. And it looks like, hopefully, it looks like they're being set up to be the ones to now chase Jurati, find out exactly, kind of, they're going to do the borg chasing scene. And that's fine. That's good. That feels right. That feels like they would be the characters to do that. So I really enjoyed them in this episode. I liked the reveals, of course. Yep, borg code. 7's going to recognize that straight away. All fine. All great with me. Yeah, that was definitely an up for me now this week. Down. All right, this is the last time I'm going to down this because you're probably getting blue in the face with enemy. Like, we can search for Jurati's comm badge, but God forbid we might mention the fact that Ríos left a comm badge in the clinic. I know. You're probably like, John, you've downed this 3 times already because it wasn't addressed. Down. Ríos' comm badge. Talon. Orla Brady this week is great. There was, and I say this with such love, so many accent slips back into Irish. Do you think I'm complaining about that? No, I'd give that an extra up if I could get away with it. Like, that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I really, really, really enjoyed that. She was so good going through Picard's mind like that. This would have been the wrong time to inject humor. Like, I think if we'd maybe had, really any of the other characters, there would have been the tendency to be like, okay, this is strange, what's going on? We get none of that from Talon. And it's really, really played straight. We get some great little Easter eggs dropped in there. I'll get to that in citation observations. Watching her, like, kind of experience Picard's childhood with him, absolutely really, really good. Also, the reveal that yes, she is indeed Romulan. I love it, but should they have delayed it? Maybe, maybe not. But also, yeah, like, she doesn't know Jean-Luc Picard. She knows Renee Picard, so there's no reason for her to just out and out say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a Romulan. Like, okay, yeah, so she can't use it again for 8 hours, whatevs. Like, that's fine. I don't really mind about that. I like the fact, because yes, she's clearly now an ancestor of Laris. Probably not that far removed either. Romulans do tend to live a long time. So I like that. Really, let's not do a romance between Jean-Luc and Talon. That gets icky. You don't ever want to be in a situation where maybe at the end of the season everything's right as rain, Picard and Laris have a cheeky kiss and he can say, that's not how your great-grandmother does it. Talon uses this tech that, well, first of all, we can obviously see. Oh, I'm a silly Billy. Do you know what I've just realised on the camera to you here? That the shape that went over her ears were cloaked. It wasn't just, oh, I'm a silly man. Okay, yeah, right. So the earpiece that she was wearing obviously is designed for pointed ears. So it wasn't just a decorative thing. I am not as smart as I let on. Anyway, really enjoyed that. That piece of tech where she matches up with Picard's mind and goes in. I love that. There's just kind of I'm just switching off the parental controls. Really, really enjoyed that. That piece of tech I really enjoyed. Down, giving Teresa that, that medical scanner and saying, here, keep an open mind and use this. They're from the late 24th century, 2399, so about 20, so like we're talking crossover there. This is the 21st century. There's 300 years of a gap, all right? For comparison, that's like going back to, I don't know, what, like Haydn. Not as early as Bach, Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, yes, there's a gap of 100 years there, and going, oh, hey, here's an iPhone. And you don't get away with that by dropping in the, I'm not a doctor line. I'm sorry, but no, that's a down, that's silly. Teresa! I love Ríos. I love her. I love the interplay between herself and Ríos. I just really like how they just play off each other. She delivers the line that are a bit like the audience. Like, why are you coming at me like a serial killer? I really enjoy, I love it. She's having absolutely none of this caginess and nonsense. And also, she gets the line, now I'm quoting, there's a message from Chris earlier on, is like, oh, I saw that line coming. He described it as, the end of Casualty when you see the ambulance just coming all the way toward the screen. You can see it coming the whole time, and he saw this line coming. Are you from outer space? No, I'm from Chile. I just work in outer space. I love it. Now Star Trek, that's potentially enough references to the one with the whales. I love them. I love them all. That's okay. I love it. Thank you very much. But yeah, just as always, Teresa, brilliant in this episode. Actually, Ricardo was very good as well. I really liked the way they bounced off each other. And like you can see what looks like the beginnings of a family building there together. Now, maybe not. Maybe Ríos will have to leave. There is a down. Why on earth did he beam them to La Sirena? Like it's just like, hello, this is the Temporal Prime Directive. Fly away, we don't need you. But butterflies! These aren't butterflies. These are like, I don't know, the eagles from the Lord of the Rings beating their wings. I know, like, yes, we've changed time in the fact. Gillian Taylor, in fact, the obvious parallel to Teresa, is brought into the future. So, yeah, but it's a bit like, okay, Teresa, but they kind of have to come into the future now, don't they? I mean, like, maybe Teresa keeps her mouth shut. You're telling me Ricardo is not going to tell everyone he was on a spaceship? I know it. I was going to touch everything. I love how they react. Terrible idea to bring them there. Love how they react. And the smashed mug as well. I know you're like, Sean, why are you downing a scene that you enjoyed so much? And I really did enjoy this scene so much. Absolutely dreadful logic bringing them there. Really enjoyed it. Ricardo's line of, I'm going to touch everything! Ugh. I know, I'm sorry. Now, I actually have a quick up-down here. My up, Ito Aguirre returns as young Guinan. I'm really glad we get more of her. Just love her. Love her. She's great in the role. I like that because we've had that earlier episode of them kind of meeting and everything that we skip past the why should I help you? None of that. So really enjoy that. And I enjoy her use in this episode. The down. Okay, so the Elorian can summon the Q with a bottle. What? Now, I say that so like that, not because I hate the idea. I don't hate the idea by any means, but it's just like, that's all a bit convenient, isn't it? It feels like they're trying to obviously address this connection that we first saw back in Q Who. We even see the hand gestures that Guinan makes, and like, I'm totally fine with trying to answer that, but we had a Cold War, then we had a truce. Now, she says she refuses to call them gods, but how could there be a Cold War when they can go, you never existed? So I feel like that's too big of a reveal to be just kind of brushed aside like that. So that to me was a down, and that kind of like, oh, okay, all right, grand. You know, I do like, you know, there's something wrong, a Q is supposed to appear, and the Q, as far as we know, a Q doesn't then appear. So yeah, okay, but that was, I do have an up. Lieutenant Duquesne, played by Jay Cairns, appears at the end of this. Now, we saw him in trailers before, and so for those of you who don't remember, Lieutenant Duquesne served aboard the time ship Relativity in the Star Trek Voyager episode, Relativity. He was charged with keeping the Temporal Prime Directive in place. He seems to be playing an FBI officer here. We were speaking about this and we thought that, you know, potentially ships like Relativity could be outside the timeline and therefore not affected by Q's changes. Another example of this would have been the Krenim temporal weapon ship, which existed outside of the main timeline and then wasn't affected by changes. He's part of a sting operation. We see him in the trailer holding Jean-Luc's comm badge. Jean-Luc, who tries to drop a comm badge like a stash of drugs on the ground when he's being arrested. And we know obviously Duquesne is going to know enough to pick it up, which means I get the impression that he's going to be on the hunt for future tech. We'll see obviously how this goes next week. Because also, and I think I've mentioned this, it's nice to see references to Star Trek Voyager. Jerry Ryan has been a star on this show. We get like no references to Voyager whatsoever. Duquesne was only previously seen in Voyager. So that would be nice, because he has very much met Seven before. So if they're going to interact, I'd really like to see this. There was an awful lot in this episode, and there's plenty more. So, with that in mind, come take a walk with me to Cetacean Observations. Now we get right to it. In the recap, in the very beginning of this episode, we get the beautiful Jerry Goldsmith First Contact Borg theme. Now we see the Voyager, the Nemesis-style comm badge sitting beside Picard as he's talking to, well, as we find out, Maurice. He's sitting in a chair that is incredibly evocative of TNG Season 1 captain's chair. Of course, we have the First Contact-ish style uniform. On Kallus's desk, I mean, this was a field day for Eaglemoss. We have the 1701 XL model, we have the regular 1 model, we have the K7 model, we have the NX01 model, then we have a larger, it's not Excel, or it doesn't seem to be Eaglemoss this one, a larger Excelsior model. We see Maurice holding a pad at one point from the TNG era. Then he also speaks at one point about how human versions are lesser models, and if that is not a call out to the Cylons, I don't know what is. He does also say that he's so closed, Jean-Luc, that even a Betazoid can't get a read. Now behind him there's a ship in a bottle, and there's that spiral fossil that we saw before. Later on, when Talon goes into Picard's mind, we hear sound bites. I am Locutus of Borg. You make them dangerous, they're only victims, and I'd rather die the man I was than live the life I just saw. These are all quotes from Picard from The Next Generation. At one point, Ríos asks Ricardo how up-to-date he is on his EVA combat training. Very evocative of Picard talking to Worf in Star Trek First Contact about his anti-grav training. Are you from outer space? No, I'm from Chile. I just work in outer space. There's a copy of King Lear sitting behind Maurice Picard when they speak in Chateau Picard. Now, there's a couple of references there. The fact that, of course, Picard, or Patrick Stewart himself, is a well-known Shakespearean actor, but also the idea of King Lear is about a father figure losing control over his kingdom with only one child remaining loyal. Ríos decides to draw in chalk the La Sirena at Teresa's clinic. Now, it's not exactly time-breaking, but it's not exactly a good idea either. This isn't exactly an Easter egg to anything, but when Girardi goes into the bar and the singer is singing, there's a sticker for the Irish monks behind her. Don't know who they are. Irish monks are getting a mention from me. Picard tells Talon they took a quantum leap together. Love it. And of course, Picard makes reference to Q's trial. So, guess who just had their ass handed to him by Chris? So, I mean, I definitely didn't miss the fact that Sonny Ozell was the singer in the bar, singing a track from her own record, Overnight Laws. Terry Menendez suggested that this would be happening, and I really should have noticed that because she's married to Patrick Stewart. So that's another Cetacean observation. That is everything for our episode this week. If you reckon you have anything to add to this list, let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Remember, you can catch us over on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can catch myself at Sean Ferrick on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, where I drop daily little tidbits about Star Trek. So check me out there. You're all awesome. Make sure you look after yourselves. Make sure you're kind to yourselves. Look after your friends and family. To my friends in Ukraine, stay strong. We are thinking of you. Live long and prosper. Make it so.